Welcome back to the weekly rundown. Let's get to the receivers. I'm going to go as safe can be this week. Eric Decker of the Jets, who's pretty much been the most consistent receiver of anyone. And I'm not kidding when I say that. I think the least amount of fantasy points he's produced this year is 11.7. So, really, double digits every single week, which is a little crazy. And Pro Football Focus gives him a top 8 matchup against Nickel Roby this week, of all players. The Jets have not clinched a playoff spot, as we discussed in the first half. So this is essentially a must win for them. I think he's going to build on his 3 game touchdown streak. I think he scores again, and he's got 11 touchdowns this year. So he's been an end zone threat. I love Eric Decker this week at really a mediocre price for wide receivers. London, who do you like?
I like one of the guys I like is his teammate Brandon Marshall. Man, we know the Bills secondary is kind of banged up. No Stephon Gilmore this weekend, so you look at Brandon Marshall. Man, he's went out and produced against every secondary he's faced. Especially you look at his production over the last 8 games, 9 touchdowns. You look at him over the last 5 ball games, 576 yards. You know. 5 TDs. So, you look at him, or 6 TDs, I should say. For him, every week he seems to produce, man. Every week he's catching a touchdown pass. So, Brandon Marshall, man, what's not to like about him against the Buffalo Bills? And then I'm going to go and say, I think it's safe to think that Odell Beckham Jr. should have a big ball game. I know he's pretty pricey on fantasy draft, but he's going against the Philadelphia Eagles secondary. Nothing to play for. They're already one of the worst secondaries in the league. You figure Beckham, after he set out that game last week with suspension, he wants to go out and redeem himself in the season with the big bag. So he'll be a guy that I think is going to have a huge ball game. We all know how much Eli Manning loves him. I wouldn't be surprised if he got 15 targets in this ball game.
Yeah. Beckham definitely a safe pick. And I actually wish I did more of this just to test the theory that if you started Decker and Marshall together and, 50-50s and double ups on fantasy draft every week, I bet you'd be extremely profitable because both of them seem to get it done every week. Same thing with Ryan Fitzpatrick, who throws basically 2 touchdowns because each of them score every week. So that
Right.
would have been an interesting little theory to test, but we like both of them again this week. Let's move on to tight end. I like Zach Ertz this week. I think he's one of those guys we mentioned at the beginning of the first show that there are guys that emerge down the stretch that leave guys leave fantasy owners mouth watering over the offseason. And Ertz just saw 17 targets last week, caught 13 passes, over 100 yards. So I think they're finally starting to look for their stud tight end. A lot of the year they've been playing the 2 tight end with Selleck, but I think Ertz is the guy. And, the Giants kind of weak against tight ends. I think they continue to look for him. He's cheap. We've talked about a lot of studs. So in order to fit him, you're going to have to save money somewhere. I like Zach Ertz. Who do you like?
Hey, man, the Giants are weak against all guys. Whether it's running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, it doesn't matter when you're talking about the Giants defense. But, tight ends, I like 2 tight ends. One is Zach Miller. In Chicago, Zach Miller, he's averaging about 15 fantasy points per game over the last 3 ball games. Once Martellus Bennett went down, Zach Miller has emerged as a viable threat. He's out there producing. Really inexpensive, 8,600 on fantasy draft. So he's a guy that when you look at the price and the productivity, a guy that you would definitely want to consider playing. And then Kyle Rudolph against the Green Bay Packers, and he's even less expensive than Miller. He's only 6,900. Now I go back to the ball game, the first time these 2 teams met, the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings. Kyle had 6 receptions, 106 yards, and 1 TD. So you look at him and had 25 fantasy points. I know that the game is in Green Bay, so he'll be a guy that I definitely will want to play at the tight end position against in that matchup.
Yeah, he's a guy who kind of struggled at the beginning of the season, starting to gain some consistency. Scored last week, so I agree with you on Kyle Rudolph. Let's go to defense, kind of your specialty, and this is as simple can be. The Tennessee defense is not very good, and as of Thursday morning, I don't think we have clarity yet. But one of Stephen Morris, Ryan Lindley, or Josh Freeman is going to start a quarterback for the Colts on Sunday. So, do I really need to say more? I want a defense against one of them. London, who do you like it, and who do you think is going to start a quarterback for
I,
Indianapolis?
I, I really don't know. They just signed Josh Miller. I mean, Josh Freeman. What about 2 days ago? So I'm not
Yeah,
sure if he would be the starter. I guess maybe Lindley. Lindley's been there a little bit longer. Um,
yeah,
so,
it's a
so I would
toss up.
probably say maybe Lindley would be the guy that I would think would be the starter. And we all saw how he played last year for the Arizona Cardinals when Palmer was out. So I agree with you in looking at Tennessee as a starter at defensive position. I like the Cleveland Browns. I'm sorry, I like the Pittsburgh Steelers defense against the Cleveland Browns. You look at I guess it's part of that stack theory too. I'm even taking the Steelers defense. No Johnny Manziel. Austin Davis is going to be the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. We know Pittsburgh's defense has struggled somewhat. I'm not going to put that loss to the Baltimore Ravens on the defense. We all knew what Big Ben produced in that ball game. But if you look at the game against the Denver Broncos in the second half, they held them scoreless out of 9 possessions. So hopefully that defense shows up against the Cleveland Browns, knowing that they need to play well to keep their playoff hopes alive. So I like the Pittsburgh Steelers defense in that ball game.
They're going all in. London predicting a 49-0 victory for the Steelers, but it very easily could be, so it's hard to argue there. Let's get to the questions. Again, they're very good this week. We only got a few, so let's start with the first one. This one comes from Twitter. Uh, Galen Dragiv asks, what's worse, doing a podcast with Ricky or off-season conditioning in the NFL?
Oh man. Well, it's close. I will say that. The thing about the podcast, it's only once a week,
Yep.
whereas all season conditioning is 4 days a week. So I guess the conditioning will be worse just because I'm doing it more often. But if I had to do this podcast 4 times a week, then that would be the worst.
There you go. Talking to me worse than anything you could do in the NFL. On to our second question. People obviously look up to you, so now they're looking for dating advice from London Fletcher. People would like to know, is dating someone in the classroom or office an acceptable practice?
It depends on the policy for one in the workplace. So you gotta find out what the workplace policy is. That's key because some places they don't want that fraternization at the workplace, but 'cause assuming that it's okay in the workplace, it's acceptable, but you have to understand the possible downfall of it. Say things don't work out and somebody's feelings are hurt, then that can lead to a very contentious work environment. Or I guess from the classroom standpoint, I'm assuming this is college we're talking about. So at least with the college class, maybe it's just a semester that you're in the classroom. So you won't have that same class next semester. So they're acceptable. Just understand that the risk involved with that.
There it is, London Fletcher, our very own Dr. Love at FantasyDraft.com. Until next time, I'm Ricky Sanders with London Fletcher, and we're out.